Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Kinetics Final Project. I'll be your host, Bren Adams, and today we're going to take a real inside look into America's favorite pastime. That's right, I'm talking about baseball. Specifically, we're going to look at the right shoulder mechanics for a right-handed batter. So I've divided batting up into 4 stages. So the stage 1 is the windup, stage 2 is starting. So the windup is basically what Buster Posey is demonstrating for us right here. Stage 2 is starting, so that's the first half of your swing, so before you make contact with the ball. Stage 3 is impact, so when your elbows are fully extended, your arms are out in front of you, and your bat is making impact or making contact with the ball. And stage 4 is the follow through. So what tends to happen is you swing and the bat goes from one side of your shoulder to the other shoulder. So if you're a right-handed batter, then you start with your bat facing or on your right side, and then you follow through and it swings around and wraps around to your left shoulder. This is a closed chain energy transfer, meaning that that both of his feet are on the ground, and that transfers all this energy up through his body and into the bat. To get a better idea of what I mean by these 4 stages, I'll show you from this picture. So this would be stage 1, the wind up. This would be stage 2 approximately. So this is the starting, so the half swing before you make contact. This is stage 3, the impact. So you see how he's making contact there. And stage 4, I'd say, is a combination of these two, because we're just going to assume for simplicity's sake that the batter does not let go of the bat at the end of the swing. So we're now going to be talking about the right shoulder on a right-handed batter. So the skeletal structure that makes up the shoulder joint is the scapula coming from the posterior side, the clavicle coming from the superior side, and the humerus coming from the lateral and anterior side. These 3 together form what we call a ball and socket joint, although it's not a true ball and socket joint like the femur is, because there's not a definitive cavity in which the head of the humerus goes. Instead, it's more supported by these ligaments that surround the glenohumeral cavity. I'll talk about that more in just a second. And some of the assisting bones, one of the major assisting bones is the sternum, which not only provides an attachment site for different muscles, but also gives the or is in conjunction with the clavicle, forming a gliding joint right there, giving it more mobility for the shoulder. So like I said, it's really the ligaments that form the ball and socket joint and keep these bones together. So the superior acromioclavicular ligament attaches from the acromion to the clavicle. The coracoacromial ligament attaches from the coracoid process of the scapula to the acromion of the scapula. So that's pretty cool. It connects one bone to itself, essentially. The coracoclavicular attaches the coracoid process to the clavicle. The coracohumeral attaches from the coracoid process to the humerus, and the capsular ligament is really what surrounds the head of the humerus, forming the outside of that socket. And these work together to provide a greater range of motion. So the humerus isn't just stuck in a rigid structure. It has more mobility than, say, like the hip does. So the musculature for this joint is the deltoid, the pectoralis major, which attaches to the sternum, the coracoid brachialis, the subscapularis, the supraspinatus, latissimus dorsi, teres major, infraspinatus, and teres minor. And the shoulder girdle is consisted of the pectoralis minor, subclavius, serratus anterior, trapezius, rhomboid, and levator scapulae, which kind of just help stabilize the joint, but also keep everything in place so we can have optimal range of motion. So the joint for the right shoulder, for stage 1 is abducted. For stage 2 is there's some flexion going on, abduction, and horizontal adduction. So abduction and horizontal adduction. Stage 3, there's internal rotation, horizontal adduction, and flexion. And stage 4 is horizontal adduction, internal rotation, and flexion as well. Stage 1, the wind up. So the movement is abduction. So you're just sitting there, chilling out, waiting for the ball to come so you can hit it. Muscles involved in this are the deltoid, which has a 17% or muscle activity capacity. There's the teres minor and the supraspinatus, which has less than like a 32% muscular activity. This is isometric because you're just staying in the same spot. You're not moving anything really. And the force factor, so the gravity is trying to push the shoulder down, trying to adduct the shoulder. So the abductors are working to keep that shoulder in that same place, and so it's not moving. And the force from the shoulder muscles match the external force from the gravity. Stage 2 is starting, so movement is abduction and horizontal adduction as well as flexion. So muscles involved in that are pectoralis major, teres major, deltoid, which has 101% force capacity there. Latissimus dorsi, coracobrachialis, triceps brachii, which has in the triceps brachii, which has a 92 to 71% muscle activity. It depends on where you are in that startup swing. Activity, so the abduction is eccentric, so your abductors are working and producing force, but the force from the gravity is overcoming that. So you can see from here the arm goes down, but it's adducting, but it's being stabilized by the abductors, as well as flexion. You can see it it went from there to there, which is again the gravity extending the arm. Horizontal adduction is concentric though, because you're overcoming the resistive force of the bat. Stage 3 is impact. So the movement is horizontal adduction, internal rotation, and flexion. So the pectoralis major is part of this. The serratus anterior has a 39% muscular activity. The teres major, subscapularis, latissimus dorsi. The anterior deltoid has a 76% muscle activation, and the coracobrachialis is also in play as well. So there's horizontal adduction, that's concentric because you're overcoming the force that the resistive forces from the bat. And that's the same for internal rotation for the same reason. And then flexion is isometric, so you're trying to keep this, arm in that same flexed position. Stage 4 is the follow through, so the movement is flexion, horizontal adduction, and internal rotation. The pectoralis major is at play, as well as the serratus anterior, teres major, subscapularis, latissimus dorsi, in the anterior deltoid, which has a 25% muscle activity, as well as the coracobrachialis. So the flexion, horizontal adduction, and internal rotation are all concentric because not only are we overcoming the force from the weight of the bat, but we're also overcoming gravity to flex, horizontally adduct, and internally rotate the arm. So that's about it for batting. Thank you so much.